Good morning. It is Bonnie Sachs here, and welcome to my happy half hour, where today we're going to be talking about that spiritual buzzword healing and just what does it mean and why do you even care what it means. You know, when I sit down over the weekend, I keep asking the question, so what are we going to be talking about on Monday? What are we talking about? What are we talking about? And I'm always trying to tune into what exactly is the next thing that I'm supposed to be talking about with you. And this one came in loud and clear. What exactly is healing, and why does it even matter? You know, what is the point of it? So I was actually, hi there, Robin. I was actually away this weekend, and I was hanging out with some friends that we met a couple of years ago on a cruise. They're from about as far north west as you can get and stay on the continent of North America. And of course, we're about as far southeast as you can get. And they were down in Orlando, and we went to visit them. And it was interesting to be hanging with people who don't really know what I do. Shh, it's a secret. They don't really know what I'm doing. Good morning, Robin, and happy Monday. It is definitely fun to be here. And so this hanging out with people who really haven't been exposed to a lot of what I do and have, you know, we don't hang out very often, was kind of interesting because it gave me an opportunity to really check in with the language that I use. You know, when you hang out with people who speak like you, it's really easy to go into that speak, you know, that dentists use and doctors use and engineers, pilots, all of us have that language that we use. And so it really gave me an opportunity to see how I use certain language and just assume that people know what it means. So I wanted to take a couple of minutes today to talk about healing and why does it even matter. Good morning, Eileen, and good morning, Wendy. It's great to see you guys. Yay, I hope everybody has their drink of choice. I'm actually drinking tea this morning. Get a little more fluids in me. So let's talk about this buzzword called healing. And I use it often because that's part of what the Akashic Records does. It heals issues, and so we're going to specifically be talking about using the Akashic Records to heal and why you would want to do that. But, you know, there are a lot of other ways that you can do healing work, and that includes very traditional modes as well, including, you know, psychotherapy, counseling, you know, all of those kinds of modalities that have been around for a really long time. So I'm certainly not talking about just the spiritual stuff, although that's the word that I use. So the first example I want to give you is, you know, a cut, right? If you cut yourself, you know, you bleed, it stops bleeding, and then a scab forms, and eventually that scab falls off, and you're usually left with a scar. Some of us are not so lucky that it just heals clean. Good morning, Donna. And so when I'm talking about healing, we can certainly talk about that issue and not just a little, you know, a paper cut or a knife gash or something like that, but we're talking about healing physical wounds that can be even more traumatic. You know, if you were in a car accident or you lost a limb, there's a lot of different examples that we can use. But I'm also talking about the emotional wounds that we have, and I acknowledge that there's a lot of other kinds of wounds, but we talk about emotional and spiritual wounds this morning. It gives us kind of a perspective to come from. And while as someone who reads the Akashic Records, I can do the past life stuff really easily. It comes, you know, and it makes perfect sense. We can also just talk about present time. We do not have to, you know, dive off the deep end and talk about past lives, because there are lots of things to talk about in present time. So For me, a wound is something that is unresolved, unresolved pain or trauma. So whatever you have that falls into that category, listen up, because here's the reason why we want to take a look at it, and here's what spiritual people often mean by these wounds. Good morning, Valerie. It's great to see you. So this includes everything from someone ate my cookie and I'm traumatized, from school, to divorce, the death of a loved one, moving either in another neighborhood or moving across the country or to another country, and everything that falls in between. We're talking about the tiny stuff that makes an impact on you and the really big things that are obviously very significant in your life. So healing is really about resolving that pain and redefining it and bringing understanding and new awareness, a new perspective to the trauma. So you start to understand what it was actually there for. Because if we go back to the universal laws and we talk about, the law of reflection, absolutely nothing happens to us that is not for our awareness or our healing or for a new perspective. So that's the reason why we really want to take a look at this. And when you heal, you allow yourself the opportunity to redefine it, to reshape whatever happened, and really come into new awareness and understanding about what it was that happened and how you can release the lower frequencies that are no longer working for you. That would be, anger, frustration, sadness, depression. You release all of those emotions, and instead you bring in some wisdom, some perspective, some understanding, some compassion. There's a lot of different emotions that you can bring in. And when you move out low frequencies and bring in higher frequencies, you start to feel better. And that's really the goal of everything that we do in life, is to really feel better. So we want to get a new viewpoint on healing. So let's look at an example. I love when I'm always asking in my records for an example of what we're talking about. And this one was really hard for me. I don't know if any of you have an example, or feel free to throw up an example, and we can certainly talk about something that you have healed or something that you would like to heal. We can get some perspective. I'm happy to give you a little bit of new viewpoint from the Akashic Records as we're talking this morning. But here's the example that I got. So present life, currently now, you and your sibling, you and your sister, you and your brother, it doesn't matter who, are constantly fighting over who is better at things. It can be, from a little thing. The example that I got was, who throws a better free throw shot? I think they gave me that example just so I could get tongue-tied. Who throws a better free throw shot in basketball, to, who makes more money, who has the better house, who drives the better car, whose kids are more well-behaved, get better grades, right? It can be any number of things that you are constantly in competition with your sibling over. And this free throw shot deal started 30 years ago, and it started when it was just a small, inconsequential thing. Your dad came home from work. He worked hard. He was hardly ever home, didn't pay a lot of attention when he was at home, because he was very engrossed in making enough money for the family, to improve the family, situation, all that kind of stuff. Definitely no blame here. But, he comes home and the two of you are out throwing free throws, and you say, Dad, look at me. And, your sibling grabs the ball, throws the ball, makes the perfect shot, and dad is paying attention and acknowledges it and says, woohoo, yay, way to go. You run to go get the ball, grab the ball, ready to go, okay, dad, look at me, look at me. And dad has now gotten, involved in a message or got called into the house, is just completely checked out. And so now all of a sudden you're like left there like, wait, what is this? Why are you not paying attention to me? And that little inconsequential event, seems like a little inconsequential event, is really important to you, because here you are in your 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 8-year-old, it doesn't really matter how old you are, that body, and you are busy making it a big deal. Dad is not paying attention. Dad is not looking at what you're doing, but he definitely looked at your sibling. And so you're holding on to that. And it, like I said, it seems really inconsequential. We sit there and go like, yeah, what's the big deal? So he didn't watch me do a free throw. He watched me at my game, 2 weeks later. But what happens in our bodies is that event happens and we immediately make up a rule. We immediately do something in our own heads and give it some value. And the minute that we do that, we have now held on to something. And if we created a rule, if we gave it some value, if we did something in that moment, we are now going to judge every other event based on that. And so that point, to me, when I look at it energetically, it's like gray matter. It's that gray, smoky kind of look to it that is just like, oh, how can you see clearly through that at all? And the answer is you really can't. You are now looking at every event that happens with your sibling through a little bit of gray matter. Now, if this happened over and over again, imagine how often you would be creating that gray matter and why there's suddenly so much tension and frustration between you and your sibling. It can happen in any situation, right? We're talking about siblings, but it can happen at work. We are constantly having situations happen to us where we are redefining, making a new rule, redefining what happened to us, and we're assigning meaning to it. And things that happen to us prior to now, I was actually going to say things that happened to us prior to a year ago, but really we are constantly doing it. Even those of us that are in this profession and really understand how we create issues in our lives, we're doing it. I was away this weekend hanging with our friends, and I was busy creating new rules and new thoughts about, well, why am I not doing this? I should be talking about this. Why am I not presenting that? And I'm creating new stuff all the time. We are constantly creating new rules, new perspectives, new ideas, new thoughts. Make sense? Hopefully that absolutely does. So here you are in your little body, and you're making up a rule and saying, Dad doesn't love me, or my brother sucks, or any number of things, because Dad got called into the house, didn't remember to come back out, and didn't watch you. So it becomes an ongoing situation. It's just a little aggravation there. So that is something to heal. And I love to tell people that anything that doesn't feel good is an opportunity to heal. That means that there is something there. If you have a riff with your coworker or your next door neighbor or your spouse, that's just an indication that there's something there to be resolved. And it's a matter of looking at it and asking, what is it? What do I need to take care of? So in my experience, because I read the Akashic Records and I do a lot of past life stuff, one of the things that I realize is that these things often don't happen just in this lifetime. So for those of you who have something like this with a sibling, I am willing to guarantee that this is something that goes back to a previous lifetime, that there was another time period where you perhaps you could have been siblings, you could have been married to each other, could have been a parent-child relationship, a coworker, it doesn't really matter. But there was some time, and usually many times, where this has happened before, where you got in a competitive situation where someone else, a third party, didn't pay attention, didn't acknowledge, didn't give you credit. I'm actually tuning in now. I don't know if there must be somebody who's joining us today, or perhaps somebody who's going to join us in the future, that is about somebody actually stealing your work. So this was a coworker situation where, you created, designed something, and another coworker took the credit for it, and you've held that against them and haven't resolved it. And it's not like you don't, it's not okay to hold it against them, because what they did in this particular situation that I'm getting is wrong. I'll make that judgment call on that it's not fair, but that you want to resolve it. You don't want to hold on to something that keeps you angry, frustrated, annoyed, anything that doesn't feel good. So this situation that you're in conflict with somebody will show up over and over again. So whoever that is, if you want to give me a call, I would love to hear about that detail from a past life. But it could be that a parent died, or your parent didn't recognize you, or had no time for you, like in the example I gave today. But that there is always something for us to heal, to resolve, to clean up, to come to some sort of resolution about, so that it's no longer a sticking point. And for me, when I go into the Akashic Records, if somebody were to call me and say, okay, I'm that person who is constantly arguing with my sibling. If I went in and I did an Akashic Records reading, or I did an Akashic Alchemy session with them, what I would be doing is going in and looking at the situation that happened here, and it could be several situations that have happened in this lifetime, giving some understanding to what is going on there. But I would actually be going back to that time period, in the 1500s, in the 1600s, in the 1700s. So the situation that I'm talking about now for the person is actually in the 1910s, and there's some kind of process that the person created, and somebody else took credit for it. So it's really interesting. It's like something in the assembly line. Okay, so what I'm getting is that it is something with, like at the beginning of, it's like factory work. Like there is a process where things are being put together, assembled, and it's something really, it seems inconsequential, but it's like, if you were doing the, I'm actually, this is a really weird analogy, but okay, let's go with it. I'm actually getting that it is like putting peanut butter in a jar, and the issue was that if they rearranged the order that they were putting the things in, it would make the work flow better. And so it sort of feels like you are crushing the peanuts and then melting the oil to mix with it, and it's like if you switch those two, that it would have been an easier process. And so you made that suggestion. It altered the business completely. It actually, the business ended up making more money and ended up becoming a lot more efficient. And so you have held that, you've held on to that for, what is that, more than 100 years. You've held on to that, and it's just a matter of, once you have that wisdom, that understanding, you make that connection that says, oh, God, that so resonates with me, that just, it feels like that was absolutely me. Then all of a sudden, you can, you have some resolution. You feel like somebody's listening to you, that you are completely justified, that it made sense, and suddenly you don't have that tension that you're walking around with anymore. Now you are, um, um, now you're feeling better. You have released that, and what will happen in your present time life is that you won't have nearly the need to compete with your sibling, let's say, or your coworker, or whoever that turned out to be. Now, just to remind you guys that, we live many lifetimes. There is definitely reincarnation. And so you in this lifetime, if you're a woman in this lifetime, you could be a man in this lifetime in the 1910s, and your sibling in this lifetime could be your coworker in that lifetime. Male, female, doesn't matter about the race or what country you're in. It doesn't have to be, that you're in America. You could be in a European country, down in South America. There's a lot of different places. So, we are constantly reincarnating on this planet, on another planet. So that's how all of that piece works. It really cracks me up, because there are days when I just get all these notifications popping up, and I'm like, what is up with you guys that you're popping up now? So anyway, so that is the piece about healing, and one of the ways that we go in and resolve that gray matter, resolve those sticking points, and why we want to heal, and what exactly, us spiritual people mean by healing. Is kind of moving out the stuff that doesn't feel good and bringing in more that feels better. So I am beginning today teaching a class with my business partner, Lily, and it is called The Healing Power of the Akashic Realm. And I bring this up because I just want to expand this idea about healing. And the class is, once you learn how to read your Akashic records, you then want to be able to go in and start looking at these places that you want to heal, these places that are kind of like this gray matter, these places where it doesn't feel good. There's something that you're stuck about. And so this class is a 6-week class, and we, every week we're taking a different life aspect. So this week it starts at 11 o'clock today. So this week we're going to be talking about your health. And so what we do is we show you how to go into your own Akashic records and ask the question about your health. What issue do you have around your health that you want to resolve? Where is there a place that is no longer serving you, that you are ready to release whatever that is? So, for some people it might be a diagnosis that they've had, or a fear that they've had that they're going to have a diagnosis. Perhaps one of their parents died of cancer, or a situation like that, and so they want to know, am I going to have cancer? Is cancer an issue? What do I need to do to resolve the cancer? And so in a situation like that, I have often seen that people go in and they realize that the conversation around cancer is really for their parents' teaching. It's not their teaching, and so their part about cancer is to be the child of someone who has cancer, or to have that experience in the third person rather than in the first person, so to speak. So You know, when you go into the Akashic Records and you're looking specifically at the topic of health, you have a great opportunity to really ask the questions that have been outstanding in your mind, to ask the questions, you know, what about my health? What do I need to look at? What's most important as an issue of health? So next week, we're going to be talking about family relationships. That's another great example of something that we all want to heal. We all want to resolve and take a look at. Where in my family relationships do I most need to look at and see what is available for me to let go of? You know, the things that are low frequency. You know, the anger that I have with my mom for not packing my lunch. I don't know where some of these examples come from. Not packing my lunch when I was a kid. Or, you know, the frustration I have with a grandparent. Family relationships can be just about anything. And then we also take a look at intimate relationships. So, you know, intimate relationships can be the relationships that you've had in the past, because perhaps you were married in the past and you want to work on coming to some resolution with that relationship. Or it could be an intimate relationship that hasn't happened yet. What does that look like? And what do I need to work on in that area of my life to be more in a place where I can really be intimate with somebody, that I can really share myself. So there's a lot of perspectives that we can take on that. You know, we also spend a week talking about our career or our purpose. And I have said this before, the number one question I get when I meet with people about the Akashic Records is, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? Am I living my purpose? What is my purpose? How can I move through this issue that I have regarding my purpose? So we spend an entire week working on that and really taking a look at what there is for us to learn, for us to have a new perspective on. We also talk about money. Whew. Oh, what an issue money is. And we can look at money from the standpoint of, why do I not feel abundant? Why do I not make the money that I want? You know, what is left for me to move out as far as pictures that I have, thoughts that I have that say, I'm not worthy of money, or I'm not worthy of that salary, or I'm not worthy of having, you know, those physical items. I'm not worthy of that level of a house or that level of a car, things like that. There's so many places where we can heal our issues around money. So that's another great place to look at. So I'm really excited about this particular class. I think it's a great opportunity for us to resolve some of the things that have kept us unhappy, that have made us sad or vulnerable, or just feeling like we are not the most productive that we can be in our lives. And you know, after all, that's really all we want, right? We really want to be loved. We want to feel like we're making a difference. We want to feel like there is some worth to our lives. So it is going to be an amazing class, and we're going to be repeating it over and over again because it is such an amazing opportunity to heal. Remember, that is what we're talking about. To heal what is there for us that is not making us feel our best, that is not making us our happiest. So I really want to thank you all for being with me this morning. And if you have any questions at all, please feel free to send me a Facebook message. I do it all. Facebook message, messenger, texting. Please, please, please. And I'd also like you to encourage you to look at doing a session with me to heal something that is outstanding for you, something that you're like, all right, I have definitely had enough of this. I'm finished with it. I'm ready to move it out and go on to the next phase of my life. So you can find that information on my website and also on my Facebook page. And I have been having a blast helping people heal what is outstanding for them. So thank you very much for joining me today. I hope to see you at one of the events that are around town. And if not, to see you next Monday here at 9 a.m. Hope you have a great week. Take care.